The year was 2425, and the galaxy seemed smaller than it once had. Stellar jump technology had matured to the point where journeys that once took generations now took mere days. The Galactic Alliance had mapped most of the known systems, establishing trade routes and diplomatic channels with hundreds of species across the spiral arms. Yet, there remained pockets of space that held secrets, regions so inhospitable that even the most advanced civilizations avoided them. These were the edges of Alliance territory, where Deathworlds lurked in the cosmic darkness. Captain Mira Voss stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel, Aegis watching the star charts flicker with possibilities. Her ship cut through the void with the quiet elegance that only came from 3 centuries of engineering refinement. The Aegis wasn't the largest vessel in the Alliance fleet, but it was one of the most versatile, equipped for everything from deep space reconnaissance to first contact protocols. 25 souls comprised her crew, each one hand-picked for their expertise and adaptability. They were explorers, scientists, diplomats, and, when necessary, soldiers. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as Lieutenant Commander Kale monitored the sensor arrays. Dr. Leah Thorne, the ship's xenocultural specialist, worked at her console reviewing linguistic databases for the 7th time that morning. The mission briefing had been clear. Survey the Y-5 system catalog, any potential resources or hazards, and report back to Alliance Command. It was supposed to be routine. The first sign that it wouldn't be came at 800 hours ship time. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Kale, called out, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "I'm picking up a signal from the Y-5 system. It's unusual." Mira moved to his station, her boots clicking against the polished deck plates. "Define unusual, Lieutenant Commander." Kale's fingers danced across his controls, filtering and analyzing the incoming data. "It's an SOS signal, ma'am. But the encoding, it's archaic, pre-Alliance standard, possibly centuries old. The signal is originating from Y-5 itself." Y-5. Dr. Thorne looked up from her console, her expression skeptical. "That's classified as a Class 5 death world. Extreme gravity, toxic atmosphere, radiation storms, predatory fauna that can tear through military-grade armor. Nothing could survive there long enough to establish any kind of permanent settlement, let alone broadcast signals." Major Wren, the ship's weapons specialist, approached from the tactical station. His scarred face bore the marks of frontier conflicts, and his instincts had kept the Aegis safe through more than one dangerous encounter. "Could be a trap," he suggested. "Pirates have been known to use distress signals to lure ships into ambush zones." Mira considered this as she studied the readings. The signal was weak, but persistent, pulsing with the universal patterns recognized across the galaxy as a call for help. Alliance regulations were clear. All distress signals were to be answered regardless of age or origin. The principle had been established after the Proxima incident, when an entire colony had perished, because a patrol ship had deemed their century-old emergency beacon too old to be relevant. "Set course for Y-5, she ordered. "Maximum sustainable speed. If someone's in trouble out there, we're their best hope." The journey to Y-5 took 18 hours. During that time, the crew prepared for multiple scenarios. Dr. Thorne researched every scrap of data about the system, while Major Wren ran combat simulations. The signal grew stronger as they approached, but it remained frustratingly consistent. Just an endless loop of the ancient distress code. As the Aegis dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Y-5 system, Mira felt her blood run cold. The planet hung before them like a wounded beast, its surface scarred by millennia of volcanic activity and cosmic bombardment. Massive storm systems swirled through the toxic atmosphere, and radiation readings spiked across their sensors. But it wasn't the planet that made her heart race. It was what surrounded it. "Mother of stars," Lieutenant Commander Kale whispered. In orbit around Y-5 hung a sight that defied belief. Hundreds of warships, each one larger than anything in the Alliance fleet, formed a perfect defensive sphere around the planet. The vessels were unlike anything in the Alliance databases, Angular, aggressive designs that seemed to have been carved from black metal and starfire. Optical fortresses, massive weapons platforms that could probably crack moons drifted between the ships like chrome predators. The entire fleet was powered up their engines, creating a aurora of light that turned the dead system into something resembling a festival of war. Scan for life signs. Mira ordered, surprising herself with how steady her voice remained. Multiple contacts. Kyle reported, his hands shaking slightly. Thousands of them across the fleet. And Captain, they're all focused on us. Dr. Thorne had gone pale. This changes everything. No civilization recorded in Alliance history could field a fleet of this size. These ships, some of them are larger than our space stations. Major Wren was already running tactical analyses. Weapon signatures suggest energy weapons beyond our current classification system. Captain, I strongly recommend we withdraw and call for reinforcements. Mira stared at the display, watching as several of the larger vessels began to move their formations, shifting to better encompass the Aegis. She had two choices: retreat and potentially condemn whoever was sending the distress signal, or proceed and risk her ship and crew against overwhelming odds. Open a channel, she decided. All frequencies, let's try to talk to them. The communication system crackled to life. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Mira Voss of the Alliance exploration vessel Aegis. We received your distress signal and have come to render assistance. Please respond. The answer came not in words, but in action. Every ship in the system powered up their weapons simultaneously, creating a light show that was both beautiful and terrifying. Warning symbols flashed across the Aegis's screens as target locks activated by the hundreds. Then, finally, a response. The voice that came through the speakers was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of absolute authority. Alliance vessel Aegis, you have entered restricted space and threatened sacred ground. Maintain current position and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to flee or attack will result in immediate destruction. Dr. Thorne worked frantically at her console. Captain, I'm analyzing the language patterns. It's definitely human in origin, but with significant drift. Whoever these people are, they've been isolated for a very long time. Human. Major Wren looked incredulous. Impossible. No human civilization could survive on a Class 5 death world, let alone build a fleet like this. How do you know they're on the planet? Dr. Thorne asked. The signal could be coming from the fleet. No, Lieutenant Commander Kale interjected. I'm reading massive installations on the planet's surface. Cities, manufacturing centers, what looks like orbital elevators. Captain, there's a whole civilization down there. Mira felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Her orders were to answer the distress call, but she hadn't expected to find a military force that could obliterate the Aegis without effort. She thought of her crew, of the families they'd left behind, of the report she'd have to write if any of them died under her command. This is Captain Voss, she broadcast again. We're here in response to your distress signal. We have no hostile intentions. A different voice responded, this time female, and somehow more approachable despite the underlying steel. Captain Voss, our readings indicate your ship carries significant weapons. You will power down all offensive systems and submit to escort to Landing Bay 7 on the orbital fortress Corvain. Compliance is not optional. Captain, Major Wren spoke quietly. If we power down, we're completely vulnerable. No shields, no weapons. They could space us all with a thought. Dr. Thorne looked up from her analysis. The linguistic patterns suggest a highly militarized society. Honor duty and strength appear to be primary cultural values. Showing weakness might be interpreted as deception. And showing strength might be interpreted as aggression, Mira countered. She made her decision. Power down weapons and shields. Maintain life support and basic systems only. Someone has to take the first step toward peace. The next few minutes felt like years as the Aegis drifted powerlessly among the war fleet. Escort ships moved into position, their hulls scarred with what looked like battle damage, but upon closer inspection, appeared to be decorative scarification. The orbital fortress, Corvain, loomed ahead its landing bay, large enough to accommodate ships 10 times the size of the Aegis. As they were guided into the landing bay, Mira could see crews of figures moving about in the massive space. They wore armor that looked both primitive and highly advanced, as if someone had taken medieval plate mail and rebuilt it with materials that gleamed like captured starlight. "Environmental scan," she asked. "Atmosphere is compatible," Lieutenant Commander Kale reported. "Higher oxygen content than standard elevated gravity, at 1.7 standard. Temperature within acceptable parameters for human physiology." "Human physiology," Dr. Thorne mused. "Captain, I think we're about to meet the descendants of some long-lost colony fleet. The question is, what happened to turn them into this?" The Aegis settled onto the landing pad with mechanical precision. Almost immediately, the landing bay sealed and atmosphere flooded in. Through the view screen, Mira could see a delegation approaching. A dozen figures in that strange armor, walking with a disciplined pace that spoke of military training. "Major Wren, Dr. Thorne, Lieutenant Commander Kale. You're with me," Mira ordered. "Full diplomatic gear, but keep sidearms hidden. Everyone else monitor from here and be ready for anything." The airlock cycled, and they stepped onto the deck of the fortress. The gravity hit them immediately. Mira felt as though she weighed nearly twice as much as normal. The air tasted of metal and ozone, carrying an undercurrent of something that reminded her of thunderstorms. The delegation stopped precisely 10 meters away and removed their helmets in unison. Mira's breath caught in her throat. They were human, but changed in ways that spoke of generations of adaptation to extreme conditions. Taller than standard baseline, with broader shoulders and more prominent musculature. Their skin had a gray undertone that suggested adaptation to high radiation environments, and their eyes were larger than normal, probably better suited for low-light conditions. The leader stepped forward, a woman whose bearing suggested absolute confidence in her environment and authority. She was strikingly beautiful, in a way that spoke of genetic optimization, but her eyes held the hardness of someone who had seen too much war. "I am War Leader Kestra Valdris of the Corvain Garrison 3rd Fleet of the Eternal Hunt. You claim to answer a distress call. Explain the nature of this supposed distress." Mira stepped forward, matching the formal tone. "I am Captain Mira Voss of the Galactic Alliance vessel Aegis. We received an SOS signal broadcast on pre-Alliance frequencies, indicating someone in this system required assistance." Kestra's expression didn't change, but several of the warriors behind her exchanged glances. "Show me this signal." Dr. Thorne activated a portable display unit, showing the waveform and frequency analysis of the signal they had received. Kestra studied it for a long moment, then spoke rapidly in what sounded like a dialect of Alliance standard. "This is no distress call," she said finally. "This is the summoning, the call to war. You have answered something you do not understand." Major Wren tensed his hand, moving unconsciously toward his sidearm. "We came here to help. We're not looking for a fight." Kestra's attention shifted to him, and Mira saw something dangerous flicker in her eyes. "You wear the markings of a warrior. Do your people not honor the traditions of combat?" Dr. Thorne stepped forward quickly. "War Leader Kestra, we're not familiar with your customs. Perhaps we could learn about them. Understanding between our peoples could benefit everyone." "Understanding," Kestra seemed to consider the word. "You speak of understanding, yet you bring weapons to sacred space. You answer the summoning but claim ignorance of its meaning. Tell me, aliens who look like the ancient fathers, are you here to test our strength?" "Aliens," Mira felt confusion wash over her. "We're human like you, at least descended from the same stock." For the first time, Kestra showed surprise. "Human. You claim kinship with the first people, yet you know nothing of the trials, nothing of the calling, nothing of what it means to be forged in the furnace of a dying world." She gestured to her companions. "These are human, proven human. Human by fire and blood and the blessing of struggle." "I don't understand," Mira said. "What happened here? How long have your people been on Y5?" 800 years, Kestra replied. 800 years since the first fleet arrived fleeing the collapse. 800 years of proving ourselves worthy of life itself. Every generation tested every child forged in the crucible of this blessed world. We are what humanity becomes when it refuses to accept defeat. Dr. Thorne was furiously taking notes on her portable unit. Fascinating. You've developed an entire culture around survival in extreme conditions. But the distress signal, why is it still broadcasting if it's not actually asking for help? Because it is not meant for soft peoples who live in the spaces between stars, Kestra said, her tone carrying what might have been contempt. The summoning calls to those who are worthy, those who have proven themselves. It is an invitation to join the great hunt to test your strength against ours, and perhaps earn a place among the children of the storm. You're talking about the war fleet, Major Wren said. All those ships. What are you hunting? Kestra's smile was sharp as a blade. We hunt everything that needs hunting. Pirates who prey on the weak. Slavers who traffic in suffering. Alien empires that think themselves beyond challenge. And now, perhaps we will hunt those who answer calls they do not understand. The tension in the room was palpable. Mira could see that Major Wren was calculating distances, angles, potential cover. Dr. Thorne looked fascinated but worried. Lieutenant Commander Kale was pale with the realization of what they had stumbled into. War leader, Mira said carefully, we came here in good faith, believing someone needed help. If we've made an error, we're willing to withdraw and leave you in peace. Peace. Kestra laughed, a sound like breaking glass. There is no peace for the descendants of the First Fleet. There is only the eternal struggle, the constant testing, the never-ending hunt. You cannot simply leave. You have entered the testing ground. You have seen our strength. Now you must prove yours or be destroyed as unworthy. You're talking about forcing us into combat, Major Wren stated flatly. I am talking about the oldest law of the universe, Kestra replied. The strong survive, the weak perish. Your people send a single ship to answer what they think is a distress call. Either you are supremely confident in your abilities or supremely foolish. Which is it, Captain Voss? Mira felt the weight of command pressing down on her, like the increased gravity of the station. Every decision she made now could mean life or death for her crew, and potentially war between their peoples. She thought about alliance protocols, about the chain of command, about the families waiting for her crew to return home. Neither, she said finally. We came because someone might have needed help. That's what decent people do. Kestra studied her for a long moment. Decent. Another word I had not expected to hear. You puzzle me, Captain Voss. You claim to be human, yet you show none of the strength that defines humanity. You speak of helping others, yet your people live in comfort while we struggle for every breath. Maybe that's the difference between us, Dr. Thorne interjected. We've learned to make life easier while you've chosen to make it harder. Both approaches have their merits. Chosen. Kestra's voice carried an edge that could have cut steel. You think we chose this. You think anyone chooses to watch children die in acid storms, to see warriors consumed by radiation cancer, to bury friends lost to the hunting beasts that stalk our cities. We didn't choose this alien who claims to be human. We were forced into it, and we became stronger because of it. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. Mira began to see the truth of their situation. These weren't just survivors. They were the product of 8 centuries of brutal selection pressure. Every generation had been tested, and only the strongest had lived to pass on their genes and their culture. The signal, she said slowly. It really isn't a distress call, it's a challenge. Now you begin to understand. Kestra gestured, and her warriors stepped forward slightly. The summoning goes out into the void, calling to any who think themselves strong enough to face the children of the storm. Some come seeking to conquer us. Others come seeking alliance. A few like you come thinking to save us. She paused. None leave unchanged. Major Wren's hand was now openly resting on his sidearm. And if we refuse your test, if we just want to go home, then you will be destroyed, Kestra said simply. Because anyone who knows the location of the Forge Worlds and is not strong enough to survive here is a liability to our people. We cannot allow the soft peoples of the galaxy to know our weaknesses. Weaknesses. Lieutenant Commander Kale spoke for the first time since they'd landed. You have the most powerful fleet I've ever seen. What weaknesses? Kestra's expression grew grim. Our population. We are strong, but we are few. 800 years of Deathworld living has given us incredible individual capability, but our numbers remain small. If the galaxy knew how few of us there truly are, they might decide to overwhelm us with sheer numbers. Dr. Thorne looked up from her notes. You're afraid. Despite all your strength, you're afraid of being outnumbered. Fear is wisdom, Kestra replied, and wisdom keeps us alive. But enough talk. Captain Voss, you must choose. Will you accept the trial of worthiness where your ship and crew will be tested against our finest? Will you attempt to flee, knowing that our weapons will reduce your vessel to component atoms? Or will you beg for mercy, proving that your people are too weak to be allowed knowledge of our existence? Mira felt the eyes of her crew upon her. She thought about her 25 people, each one trusting her to bring them safely home. She thought about the alliance, about the principles of exploration and peaceful contact that had guided humanity to the stars. And she thought about the fleet surrounding them, each ship capable of reducing the Aegis to scrap in seconds. There's a fourth option, she said quietly. Kestra raised an eyebrow. Speak. Cooperation. You say you're few in number but individually strong. We have vast numbers, but perhaps less individual capability. Our technology is different. Our strengths complement each other. What if instead of testing our worthiness through combat, we tested it through working together? Together. Kestra said the word as if it were foreign. You would have your soft galaxy, and our hard-forged people share the same sky. I think we already do, Mira replied. We've both survived out here among the stars. We've both found ways to thrive in impossible conditions. Maybe it's time we learned from each other instead of trying to destroy each other. For a moment, something shifted in Kestra's expression. The mask of the warrior slipped slightly, revealing something that might have been hope. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. Pretty words, Captain, but words are wind, deeds are stone. If you wish to propose an alliance, you must prove that your people are worth allying with. The trial stands. Before Mira could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and Kestra was moving before the sound even registered fully. Ship leader, one of her warriors called out. Alliance vessels detected at the system's edge. Large fleet moving fast. Kestra's expression went deadly. How many? 60 ships of the line, battle cruisers, destroyers, carriers. Full battle formations. Mira felt her blood turn to ice. The Alliance fleet. Someone had detected their situation and sent a rescue force. But they didn't know what they were flying into. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Kale said quietly, that's the 5th Fleet. Admiral Chen's task force. They're coming to save us, Major Wren said grimly. And they're going to start a war instead. Kestra was speaking rapidly to her warriors in their dialect, but her eyes remained fixed on Mira. Your people just made the choice for you, Captain. They bring a war fleet to our sacred space. The trial is no longer about worthiness. It's about survival. Wait, Mira called out. Let me talk to them. I can explain the situation, prevent bloodshed. You think your words will stop what has already begun? Kestra gestured to the displays, showing the approaching Alliance fleet. They see our strength and choose force over diplomacy. They prove themselves to be exactly what we expected. Soft people who resort to overwhelming numbers when faced with true strength. Dr. Thorne stepped forward urgently. War leader, please. Captain Voss is right. This is all a misunderstanding. The Alliance fleet doesn't know you're not actually in distress. They think they're coming to rescue us. And when they see our distress consists of the greatest war fleet in this sector of the galaxy, what then? Kestra's voice was bitter. Do you think they'll simply apologize and leave? Through the station's communication system, they heard the unmistakable sounds of weapons powering up. The Deathworlder fleet was preparing for battle, hundreds of ships moving into attack positions around the approaching Alliance force. The Forge Lords Council has spoken, Kestra announced. All Alliance vessels are now considered hostile. You will remain here as insurance that your fleet's death will not be entirely meaningless. Hostages, Major Wren said flatly. Witnesses, Kestra corrected. Someone must survive to tell the galaxy what happens when the soft peoples threaten the children of the storm. Mira watched through the view screen as the Alliance fleet dropped to sublight speed at the system's edge. Admiral Chen would be evaluating the tactical situation, trying to understand how a simple rescue mission had turned into a confrontation with an unknown force of overwhelming size. Open a channel to my ship, she ordered. Kestra nodded to one of her warriors who activated the communication system. Aegis, this is Captain Voss. Emergency Protocol 7. Lock down all systems and prepare for communications blackout. Lieutenant Sarah Park's voice came through clearly. Captain, are you all right? We've got massive fleet movements out there and Admiral Chen's task force is demanding reports. Tell Admiral Chen that the situation is not what it appears. Under no circumstances should the fleet take aggressive action. Repeat, no aggressive action. The people here are not hostile unless provoked. Captain, you're cutting in and out. We're reading massive energy signatures from the orbital fortresses. It looks like they're targeting the fleet. Kestra cut the channel with a gesture. Enough. Your admiral will see what he sees. Our weapons are indeed targeting his ships because that is what one does with potential threats. This is insane, Mira said desperately. Thousands of people are about to die because of a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Kestra's voice was cold as space. Your people receive what they believe is a distress call and send one ship. When that ship doesn't report back immediately, they send a war fleet. What part of that suggests peaceful intent? Dr. Thorne was studying her portable display. War leader, the signal. The one we've been calling an SOS. How long has it been broadcasting? Since the first generation established the orbital defenses. 300 years, perhaps more. 300 years of the same signal. Doesn't anyone in the Alliance question why a distress call would broadcast for that long? Kestra paused. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe our intelligence services know more than they've told us. A distress signal that broadcasts for centuries doesn't make sense unless... Dr. Thorne's eyes widened. Unless someone wanted to use it as bait. Bait for what? Mira demanded. For exactly this. Think about it, Captain. The Alliance has been expanding aggressively over the past century. We encounter a lot of resistance from independent systems that don't want to join. Maybe someone decided that a mysterious fleet of unknown capabilities would be useful. The implications hit Mira like a physical blow. You're suggesting the Alliance sent us here deliberately, knowing we'd trigger a confrontation. It's possible, Dr. Thorne said grimly. Send in an exploration vessel to answer a distress call. When that vessel encounters something unexpected, send in the fleet to rescue them. In the process, eliminate a potential threat or absorb it into the Alliance. Kestra's expression had gone very still. Your people. They would use you as bait, send you knowingly into danger to provoke a conflict. I don't know, Mira admitted. I hope not, but the possibility. The communication system crackled to life again. This time, it was broadcast on all frequencies. Attention, unidentified fleet. This is Admiral Chen of the 5th Alliance Fleet. You are holding an Alliance vessel and its crew. Release them immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. You have 5 minutes to comply. Kestra's people exchanged looks that spoke volumes. They had heard this kind of language before. Your admiral speaks as if he commands us, Kestra observed, as if his authority extends over all space and all peoples. Tell me, Captain Voss, how many systems has your alliance liberated in this manner? Mira felt sick. She had always believed in the Alliance's mission of peaceful exploration and cooperation. But now, looking at the tactical situation through Kestra's eyes, she began to see how their actions might be interpreted differently. "The Alliance has brought peace and prosperity to hundreds of worlds," she said, but the words felt hollow. "Peace," Kestra repeated. "At the point of massive war fleets, apparently." Through the view screen, they could see the Alliance fleet moving into attack formation. The Deathworlder vessels responded in kind, their massive forms shifting to present optimal firing solutions. In the space between the two fleets, energy readings spiked as weapon systems charged to full power. 4 minutes, Kestra announced. "Your admiral is prompt at least." Major Wren stepped forward. "War leader, there has to be another way. Both sides are about to make a terrible mistake." "The mistake was made the moment your alliance decided to send 60 warships to rescue 4 people," Kestra replied. "But perhaps there is wisdom in your words about cooperation." She activated her communicator and spoke rapidly in the Deathworlder dialect. A moment later, another voice responded, older, carrying an authority that made even Kestra straighten slightly. "The Forge Lord speaks," she announced. Then, to Mira's surprise, she handed her the communicator. "He wishes to speak with the Alliance representative." Mira took the device with trembling hands. "This is Captain Mira Voss of the Alliance vessel Aegis." The voice that answered was like distant thunder, weighted with centuries of hard-earned wisdom. "Captain Voss, I am Forge Lord Hadrian, leader of the Third Host. Your presence here has created what your people would call a situation." "Yes, sir. I'm trying to prevent bloodshed." "As am I. Tell me, Captain, do you believe your admiral will listen to reason?" Mira thought about Admiral Chen, a career military officer, known for his by-the-book adherence to protocols and his deep suspicion of unknowns. "I honestly don't know, sir. The admiral is not known for his flexibility." "Then we have a problem. My people have spent 8 centuries preparing for exactly this scenario. Every simulation, every drill, every strategic plan we have assumes that one day the soft peoples of the galaxy would discover us and attempt to conquer us. Your arrival, followed immediately by a war fleet, fits that scenario perfectly. What if we could prove to both sides that this is a misunderstanding?" "How?" Mira looked around the room at Kestra and her warriors, at her own people, at the displays showing 2 massive fleets preparing to destroy each other. Then, an idea began to form. "The signal," she said. "We changed the signal." "Explain." "Right now, both sides are acting on incomplete information. Your people think we're invaders. Ours think your people in distress, being threatened by an unknown fleet. What if we broadcast the truth?" "On all frequencies," Dr. Thorne added, understanding immediately. "Both fleets would receive the same information simultaneously." Kestra looked skeptical. "You would have us reveal our nature to the galaxy." "Part of it," Mira said. "Enough to prevent a war. A message explaining that the signal isn't a distress call, that your people are descendants of human colonists, that this is a misunderstanding. Something to give the Admiral pause." Forge Lord Hadrian was silent for a long moment. "The risk is enormous. Once the galaxy knows of us, we cannot return to isolation. With respect, sir, isolation was never going to last forever. You're right here on the edge of Alliance space. Sooner or later, someone would have found you." "Perhaps. War Leader Kestra, what is your assessment?" Kestra studied Mira intently. "These people, they puzzle me, Forge Lord. They speak of peace while their admiral brings war. Yet the captain risks her life to prevent bloodshed. I believe they may be worth the risk." "Very well. Captain Voss, you will work with our communications specialist to craft this message. But understand, if this fails, if your admiral attacks despite this gesture, we will defend ourselves with all our might. And we have had 800 years to perfect the art of war." "I understand, sir." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Mira's life. Working with Deathworlder technicians, they crafted a message that explained the situation in terms both cultures could understand. Dr. Thorne provided linguistic analysis to ensure nothing would be lost in translation. The message would explain that the children of the storm were human descendants, that the signal was a traditional challenge rather than a distress call, and that the Aegis and its crew were safe. As they worked, Lieutenant Commander Kale provided updates on fleet movements. The Alliance ships had stopped advancing, but maintained their aggressive posture. The Deathworlder fleet had done the same, creating a tense standoff in the space around Y5. 2 minutes remaining, Kestra announced. Message ready, the communications specialist reported. Broadcast it, Forge Lord Hadrian ordered. All frequencies maximum power. Ensure every ship in the system receives it. The message went out, a carefully worded explanation that neither side could misinterpret. For a moment, everything was still. Then both fleets began receiving responses. From the Alliance, flagship came Admiral Chen's voice, strained with confusion and anger. Aegis, confirm your status. Are you under duress? Negative, Admiral Mira responded. We are safe. The situation is exactly as explained in the broadcast. These people are human descendants, not hostile aliens. The signal we answered was not a distress call. Captain, you've been missing for hours. We detected weapons locks, aggressive positioning. How do you explain that? Kestra stepped forward and activated the communicator. Admiral Chen, this is War Leader Kestra Valdris. Your ship arrived without invitation into space. My people consider sacred. When armed vessels approach our home, we respond appropriately. Had you sent diplomats instead of battleships, you would have received a very different reception. There was a long pause. Who am I speaking to? The leader of the forces you are currently threatening to attack. My people are descendants of the colony ship Endurance lost 800 years ago. We survived. We adapted. We became strong. Your Captain Voss answered what she thought was a distress call, but what is actually a standing challenge to prove worthiness. She and her crew are unharmed and will remain so provided you do not force us to defend ourselves. Another pause, longer this time. Mira imagined Admiral Chen conferring with his staff, trying to reconcile this information with his expectations. This is unprecedented, he said finally. I need to speak with Alliance Command. By all means, Forge, Lord Hadrian's voice cut in. But while you speak with your leaders, consider this: my people have had 8 centuries to prepare for this day. Every ship in our fleet is crewed by warriors, forged in conditions that would kill your people in hours. We do not seek war, but we will not surrender or submit. Choose your next actions wisely, Admiral. The communication cut off, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the hum of machinery and the distant thrum of the station's engines. Will he back down? Kestra asked. I don't know, Mira admitted. Admiral Chen is proud. Having a show of force fail to achieve its objective. It goes against everything he's been trained for. Perhaps, Dr. Thorne suggested, we need to give him a way to back down without losing face. What did you have in mind? Kestra asked. A formal first contact. Instead of a rescue operation that failed, this becomes a diplomatic success. The discovery of a lost human colony, the establishment of relations with a previously unknown civilization. Something he can report back to Alliance Command as a victory. Kestra considered this. You would have your people treat us as equals, not as subjects to be absorbed into your alliance. That would be up to the diplomats, Mira said. But it's a better starting point than mutual annihilation. Forge Lord Kestra spoke into her communicator. The Alliance captain suggests we formalize this encounter as a diplomatic contact rather than a military confrontation. Interesting. And Admiral Chen, would he accept such a framework? Only one way to find out, Mira said. The next hour was a carefully choreographed dance of diplomacy. Messages flew between the fleets as terms were negotiated. The Alliance would recognize the Deathworlders as a sovereign human polity. The Deathworlders would agree to formal diplomatic contact. Both fleets would stand down from combat readiness. It wasn't easy. Admiral Chen resisted the idea of treating an unknown force as equals, without a demonstration of Alliance superiority. The Deathworlder military leaders questioned whether the soft alliance could be trusted to honor its agreements. But gradually, with Mira and Dr. Thorne acting as intermediaries, a framework emerged. The breakthrough came when Dr. Thorne suggested a cultural exchange. Selected Alliance personnel would visit Y-5 under carefully controlled conditions, while Deathworlder representatives would tour Alliance vessels. Both sides would gain first-hand knowledge of the other's capabilities and intentions. "It's not perfect," Admiral Chen admitted during one communication. "Alliance Command will want a full evaluation of their military capabilities." "And they will want to understand yours," Forge Lord Hadrian replied. "Perhaps it is time both our peoples learned that strength comes in many forms." As the immediate crisis passed, Mira found herself sitting in what the Deathworlders called an observer chamber, a room with vast windows overlooking the planet Y-5. Kestra joined her, no longer wearing the full armor of war, but still radiating the controlled power that marked her people. "You saved many lives today, Captain," Kestra said. "We all did," Mira replied. "Your Forge Lord could have initiated combat the moment Admiral Chen arrived. You could have used us as hostages or shields. Instead, you chose to find another way. Do not mistake pragmatism for weakness," Kestra warned, "but without the edge, it would have carried hours before. We chose negotiation because it served our purposes. Alliance technology, Alliance trade routes, Alliance numbers. These things could benefit us." "And what we could learn from you in return," Mira mused. 800 years of adaptation of survival techniques of technologies developed under pressure no Alliance world has ever faced. If our civilizations could truly work together. "If," Kestra agreed. "There will be those among your people who see us as a threat to be contained or eliminated. And there will be those among mine who see your alliance as soft decadence that needs to be purged. Then it's up to people like us to prove them wrong." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the great storms of Y-5 swirl through the toxic atmosphere below. In the distance, both fleets maintained their positions, but the weapons were powering down, and ships were beginning to move back to normal operational stances. "The signal," Mira said eventually. "Will you change it now? Make it clear what it really is." Kestra smiled, the first genuine smile Mira had seen from her. "Perhaps, though I suspect some of our more traditional warriors will insist we keep it exactly as it is. After all, it served its purpose perfectly. It brought us an enemy who became an ally, a threat that became an opportunity. And it brought the Alliance into contact with the most formidable human military force it has ever encountered," Mira pointed out. "That's going to change everything." "Change is inevitable," Kestra said philosophically. "The question is whether we shape it or it shapes us." Over the following days, as diplomatic teams arrived from Alliance space and formal negotiations began, it became clear that both civilizations would indeed be changed by the encounter. The Alliance had to confront the reality that their expansion had not been as peaceful as they liked to believe, and that strength could be found in the harshest environments. The Deathworlders had to accept that isolation was no longer possible, and that cooperation might offer more opportunities than challenge alone. The signal from Y-5 was eventually changed, but only slightly. Instead of the ancient distress code, it now broadcast a message in both Alliance Standard and the Deathworlder dialect. "To those who hear this call, prove yourselves worthy not through conquest, but through understanding. The children of the storm await your answer." Mira later learned that the signal had indeed been noted by Alliance intelligence long before her mission, but had been classified and forgotten in the bureaucratic maze of deep space monitoring. Whether it had been deliberately given to the Aegis as a pretext for military action, as Dr. Thorne had speculated, would remain a matter of debate. What was not debatable was the change in both civilizations in the years that followed. Alliance colonies on marginal worlds began adopting Deathworlder survival techniques and technologies. Deathworlder fleets began serving as auxiliaries to the Alliance military, their warriors' expertise proving invaluable in conflicts with genuinely hostile alien species. Captain Mira Voss was promoted to admiral and placed in charge of the new Cultural Integration Office, tasked with facilitating cooperation between the Alliance and what became known as the Forge Worlds. War leader Kestra Valdris eventually became the first Deathworlder ambassador to the Alliance Council, though she never abandoned her warriors' training or her people's fundamental beliefs about strength and worthiness. The story of the Aegis and the answer to a false distress call became a cornerstone of both civilizations' historical records. It served as a reminder that first contact, no matter how carefully planned, rarely goes according to script, and that sometimes the greatest victories come not from proving your strength against an enemy, but from finding the wisdom to turn that enemy into an ally. The galaxy was indeed smaller than it once had been, but it had also become more complex, more nuanced, and ultimately more interesting. The children of the storm had emerged from their isolation, not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners in the greater human adventure among the stars. And somewhere in the space around Y5, the signal continued to broadcast a beacon, not of distress, but of possibility. A reminder that strength and weakness challenge and cooperation are often just matters of perspective. A testament to the day when a misunderstood SOS signal almost started a war, but instead began a new chapter in human civilization's expansion among the stars. In the end, the real distress had not been on Y5 at all. It had been in the gap between two peoples who had more in common than they knew, separated by misunderstanding and the accumulated fears of centuries. The rescue that the Aegis had performed was not of people stranded on a hostile world, but of the possibility for cooperation between civilizations that might have destroyed each other through ignorance. The Deathworlders had indeed sent a war fleet, but in the end, it had been a fleet that chose peace over conquest, understanding over domination. And perhaps that was the most human thing of all.